Coach Brandy on a Wednesday with coffee with Coach Brandy. I won't lie though, I don't have any coffee. I already finished it and I haven't had a moment to make another cup, but I will not be far behind you. But if you have heard yours, sit back and enjoy. And I really am hoping for some interaction on this video because we're talking about the fear of failure, which leads into and is highly connected to the perfection mentality. Don't mind my gimpy thumb. I sliced a chunk off of it the other day, but I'm a big hand talker, so you're going to see it. So I just wanted you to know what was going on there. Fear of failure and perfection mentality. This came up because I was actually listening to a podcast, and I actually had a couple ladies come in recently who had just such a triumphant amount of fear that it really held them back from actually getting going and taking classes. They got the actual promo with us, but they no-showed to 2 of the classes because they were just so afraid of themselves, afraid of failure, afraid of it not looking good, afraid of people judging them. And so I really want to normalize what this fear of failure is and what perfection mentality is. Because it's one thing if you know you struggle with it and you suffer from it, but it's another thing if you don't. And it's if you do know that and you have that awareness, well, what are you doing to actually change it? And if you don't know, how can we make you aware of it? Because all of those are like the progressive steps. And so I really want to make today talking a little bit about, I'm going to share with you guys some of my stories around the failures that I've had, around the failures that I've had, the perfection mentalities I've had that have like really held me back. And in hopes that I inspire you to A, identify what's going on in your world, B, do something about it, and C, forgive yourself and move on because life's too short. So fear of failure is about your ability to take chances. Taking chances is a really big part of sometimes failing. Failing is not a bad thing because you're not the failure. And I can't say that enough. Like, a lot of times when we have failures, we think that we failed. And so this chronic fear of failure is what holds us back from taking chances, and not taking those chances is what holds us back from bettering our life. Whether it's in a business perspective, a health perspective, a financial perspective, a relationship perspective, we've got to put ourselves out there, and we've got to know that through those chances, we're going to take risks. And sometimes we'll be triumphant, and sometimes we will fail and we will fall on our face. But being afraid to fall, like if you don't take the steps, you don't get a chance to either take that step forward or fall, right? Like when you watch a toddler learning how to walk or a baby learning how to walk, it is inevitable that that kiddo is going to stumble because they're just figuring it out. But they don't just stop trying, like they do it over and over again. And we're encouraging them like, it's okay, honey, just get back up. Everything's fine. I use that analogy, and a lot of people do because it's so relatable. It's okay, honey, just give it another try. And you learn like, well, I can improve this time. Okay, well, this is going to work better for me. I shouldn't really do that. That's what you can extract out of every chance that you take, every risk that you take. And then if you have a failure, but these failures are not your identity. They are a part of who you are, but they are not exactly who you are. And one of my bigger failures, and I wanted to do this coffee with Coach Brandy here in the studio with everything behind me, that is a big freaking deal. As a lot of you guys know, I'm celebrating we're heading into our 9th year here at the studio, which is crazy. One of my biggest failures that I was super ashamed of for a long time was actually the first time I tried to open my own yoga studio. This was back in 2011, maybe 2012. I've stuffed it down deep down because it was a huge failure in my opinion. My husband like helped me laugh it off over the years. Here we are in 2023, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I actually recognize how what we did there is what helped us here. But at the time we lived in Arvada, and I was working on creating a yoga studio. At the time it was called Inda Yoga. And Inda was a Balinese approach of yoga and hatha yoga. And my husband believed in me so much, and I believed in me so much, and I loved yoga, and I wanted to share it with people and help people, that we rented a facility in Westminster in an office building of all things. And at the time we paid $5,000 for a year-long lease, which is not much money. But at the time it was so much money. And I didn't have any success getting it off the ground. I think outside of just some friends and some family coming by and maybe like one of my friends' friends, as far as strangers go, like in a whole year, that's all I was able to achieve. And I'll never forget like building it, and we laid the floors and we painted the walls and we brought in the things, thinking of all the possibility and all the potential. And it was so exciting. And I was like, I can do this. I'm smart. I'm a hard worker. I have a lot to give. How could this not work? And then I distinctly remember 1 year later when we were cleaning the place up and moving out. And so it was a huge financial loss at the time for us. It was a huge blow to the ego and absolutely what I would quantify as a failure. Fast forward 10 plus years, here I've got this, and it's all of those failures around why that didn't work played a huge role in how to improve, to implement, to make this work. And so we talk a lot about losing fat and eating nutritiously and exercise. So a lot of this is like exercise and nutrition based in this conversation. I realize I'm talking about business, but it's still a risk. It was still a failure. It was still a learning lesson, and it was still an application of those things that I learned to help improve me. And so if you want to switch it from business, I've had my own failures for exercise too. So when I left Starbucks 4 days after I quit, we were in Costa Rica, just kind of hitting the reset button. That's when I recognized, oh my gosh, I am my unhealthiest. I am my unhappiest. I am the most overweight I've been in my whole life. And I'm not even 30. And this is not okay. And that's what really kind of gave me the wake up call to start getting back to it, because back in high school and back in my middle school and elementary school days, I was always playing softball. I was always swimming. I was always in really good shape. I was really active. But there was this 28-year-old version of me thinking, well, you're never going to be what you were in high school. And that like fear of failure, that like perfection mentality flared up. And through a lot of support of friends, through a lot of support from my now husband, who is then my boyfriend, I remember doing my first 5K, and I remember being scared poopless, frankly. Like, I signed up for this race. I spent this money. Like, I didn't really know how to train for it. Sure, I got on the treadmill a little bit here and there. Yes, I went out for a little bit of interval runs there and there. But I had this certain expectation of myself of this 5K of being this like really great thing. And I didn't even have any perspective of what would make it great, but I wanted to keep up with everybody. I wanted to get a good time. Long story short, my first 5K was a 48-minute 5K. And not that that was good, bad, or indifferent, but I remember just dying. And I was really, really struggling with how my legs hurt and how I couldn't breathe and just the negative emotions that came from it. And so I, at the time, classified that as a failure. If I stopped there, I would have never gotten the chance to run the 4 half marathons I had run since. And all the lessons I learned for myself from that 5K, as far as like, get yourself on a training plan, do something formal to actually make it better instead of just willy-nilly. Through that training plan, working on your mindset, staying more positive, focusing on gratitude, pay attention to what your abilities are instead of thinking about what you can't and what you aren't and what you won't do. Stay positive. And so chipping away at each 5K, chipping away at each, training capacity, like I said, led me into running eventually 4 half marathons. Not so big into running that distance these days, but I bring these things up to share with you guys my story to inspire you for wherever you're at. And so you might have dreams. It could be dreams about how you want to look. It could be dreams about how you want to feel. Ultimately, these are lifestyle dreams. What do you want your lifestyle to be like? What do you want your lifestyle to be about? Because this is your one life. And the majority of the women here in Feed Your Soul, we're 40 and up, right? So we're looking at the next few decades to like, how do I get this to be where I really want it to be? I'm prioritizing me. I'm getting rid of the drama. I'm making sure that I take care of myself. And so dreams are great to have, but dreams are just dreams unless you have goals. And goals are just goals unless you have steps. So in order to help you prevent this fear of failure ruling your ability to jump in to the deep end and get wet because it's just fine, and getting kind of paralyzed by perfection mentality, create yourself some steps. So have your goal, have your dream, have your goal, have your steps. Reverse engineer that. A lot of times, clarity is what cures fear, because we have our own personal fears, but then there's also this fear of the unknown. Well, if I become that person that works out 3 times a week, is so-and-so still going to want to be my friend? Are they going to like judge me and make the comments about I'm a crazy worker outer? Well, if I stop eating, fast food every day at my job, are they going to start judging me and making comments on my healthier lunches? Like, there's so much fear out there that can come from a lot of different realms, but ultimately clarity cures fear. And so when you're able to identify your dreams and your goals and your steps, this creates this path for you to have structure to just take your continual footsteps. And then that clarity kind of cuts and reduces that outside pressure and noise, the fear of people judging you, the fear of like, am I doing this right? Just do it. Just get started. You're going to learn along the way if this is the best fit for you or not, and where you need to pivot and how you need to tweak. And just remembering that everyone fails. I don't know one person who hasn't failed. And you think about these really big, important people like in history, everybody's had their failures. So it's almost like join the cool kids club, have some failures, learn about yourself, shift out of that perfection mentality, and really own your true potential. You have potential. You are capable. You are strong. So take these steps forward and just trust yourself. And ultimately, it boils down like, if you're not failing, you're not trying. And how much worse is it to not try and to be stuck waist deep or knee deep in some thick mud that's feeling like it's pulling you down? What's worse than trying to get out of there versus trying to get out of there and actually take your steps forward and get yourself moving in action? So I hope that this was a little bit of motivation for you. And I hope that this was a little bit of inspiration for you to take a moment and step back. Like, what are your fears right now? Your fears right now as a 40-whatever-year-old woman might be different than the fears you had as a 20-year-old woman. The fears that you're going to have differently when you're 60. And so identifying what is it now? Like, do you have perfection mentality? Is it holding you back? What are you trying to be so perfect at? And why are you trying to be so perfect at it? Give yourself some grace. And then last but not least, just to recap, is clarity. Dreams, goals, steps. Create some little steps for yourself to be able to take action so that you have clarity, so that you can reduce the pressure and noise to get going. So I hope that was helpful, you guys. I'm definitely going to go get a cup of coffee now. I taught an amazing 6 a.m. class. There was 14 people here in the studio. We have 5 online. Everybody was focusing on getting stronger. Everybody was working on their form. Everybody was focused on feeling great. And it feels amazing to be the coach in front of that, watching that. So for those of you who are a part of that class, thank you for coming. For those of you who want to be a part of that class, but you haven't started yet, my offer continues. We have our 3 free for anybody in this group who is new to us. And you're like, I want to give this a try. We're here to help. All right, you guys, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.